Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of the Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live right here on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justice Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro that you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween horror and sci-fi dark wave electronic music. It can be found on all of your favorite music platforms. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre, but does fantastic commission pieces of any sort. So tonight we welcome, for the very first time, author Kevin Killen, who will be discussing his new book, Ghosts and Me. He has won 5 Virginia Press Awards during his time in journalism. Having stepped away from journalism, he now counsels recovering addicts. He hopes his book can help others understand the paranormal and give insight into what others are experiencing. He has never gone on a full paranormal investigation, at least from the time that he wrote the book, but has always been hoping to do so. He resides in Alexandria, Virginia, not far from his childhood home in Falls Church, where he had some of his earliest paranormal experiences. And he still experiences the paranormal. Haven't we all experienced the paranormal at one point or another? I think sometimes maybe people don't realize what's happening. Some of us tend to be quite logical. Others of us try to be really open to all of that. Also, just sending some good love and light over to Amelia. So got a migraine tonight, can't join us, came on pretty sudden. So big hugs and lots of healing energy to her. And Catherine, hey, you're first in line tonight. Hey, Tamara, you as well. Nice to see you guys. Getting a nice head start. Everybody else will be chiming in. So yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what Kevin is going to have to say. It's always interesting to get someone else's perspective as to their experiences. I can tell you that it always changes. For me, as I remember so much that, and I've done so much, especially with investigating. You've had so many experiences. I did a radio show earlier today called Out of Nowhere. You guys will have to check it out. I'm still waiting for links to come in, and it's a show based out of the UK. And it was interesting to still be asked about my paranormal experiences because I've just done so many interviews throughout the last 2 decades. And it's interesting to me that people are still very interested in my experiences, and it's hard to pinpoint any exact ones. I've had people say, "Get a book, write a book, write a book." It's just I don't have time to do so, and to be honest, I don't even know if I can remember them all, which doesn't help as you get older, just saying. But anyway, hey, Adrian. So big hugs to Bubbles. I know. So we're waiting for Kevin to chime in, which should be pretty soon, I would think. So anyway, it's very interesting to me that people are actually still interested in some of my experiences. I've had some pretty crazy experiences, but I think also knowing and acknowledging is probably more along the lines that I've also am contact experiencer with extraterrestrials, and knowing now that, through research, that they're very much intertwined. And I wonder how many of my experiences that I thought were solely paranormal may not be just paranormal. Like, how many are extraterrestrial? Because I'll tell you, like, going over today's show, especially because, I was asked to talk about the differences between, paranormal and ET contact and abductions and how similar they were. And people reporting, for example, different smells of sulfur. Well, how many times have we heard about that in the paranormal? Hearing popping sounds or crackling sounds or humming, things like that. Heck, I was hearing a lot of that in the haunted forest in Romania. Let me tell you, I'm starting to wonder, do we have any missing time? We should go back and check that all out. But realistically, these are just real basic things, but they are very much characteristics of both, paranormal and, ET. And then let's talk about sleep paralysis. I mean, in the paranormal, we call that, the hag syndrome. And of course, science is like, no, this is very, very normal. This happens to people between certain ages. And I tell you, it's the same thing when you're dealing with ET. It's all there. They explain the same thing, that feeling of being watched, that feeling of not being able to move, the heaviness on the chest. And it's like, man, oh man, when I start looking over some of that, to my knowledge, I mean, I've only had sleep paralysis twice, and it was bloody terrifying. Terrifying. So it's like, okay, maybe there's something up with that. Okay, our guest is just message. He's got it. And okay, ready for you. All right, good. Just there we go. Just letting him know we are good to go. There. Okay, so waiting on him to come in. So yeah, I mean, for me, they were terrifying experiences. But it's always cool when, people have studied this and scientists have studied this and have also had some really scary experiences while experimenting with sleep paralysis. To me, some of the things I remember, even at my Burlington house, with this humming, droning sound coming in at about 2 or 3 in the morning over the house. It's like, and the house shaking a little bit. I don't know. Is that something? Is that a craft? Because that stuff happened a lot. And when I think about it now, I'm just like, okay, you know what? Like, I've been in this field long enough to know that this hasn't always happened, and it's really freaky. Makes me question some of my paranormal experience as well, right? I mean, there's so many similarities between abductions and contact experiences as well into the paranormal. Like, I mean, they're very, very, very intertwined for sure. Your stories will be important forever. New experiences need others to share the stories. I agree, Adrian. I think people should be coming forward. And what I really love is the fact that people seem to want to come forward. We are hearing more and more people coming forward and talking about their experiences. Catherine, I've had several. Oh no, I've had sleep paralysis a few times, and it is terrifying. It is. And they say if you can move one, even a digit, that you can bring yourself out of it. First time it happened to me, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I could open my eyes, I couldn't move. And you get that whole feeling of I'm not alone. But at the time, I was married and I'm kind of shifting over, looking at my husband, going, "What is wrong with you? I am in distress here." And he was just out cold. And from that point, I just somehow forced myself to sit up straight in bed. And then it's just like everything, sort of relaxed. And I had a projection clock that was up on the, projecting onto the ceiling. And it was like a full minute at least. And it felt like forever. And the second time it happened to me, I wasn't feeling good. So I thought I would just lay down during the day. Middle of the day, it happened. And I wasn't in any sort of deep sleep. So it was crazy. And again, forced myself to try to move my fingers. And then I came out of it. But it never happened to me to my knowledge before then. So to me, that was pretty interesting. Oh, hello. Hello, Guardian. Nice to see you. Hello, Diane. Yes, Burlington does have a ley line, and that's a whole other story with experiences there. You have to consider to move when you have sleep paralysis. Yeah, it is. It's very important. It's very important. People would think that it doesn't make that much of a difference, but you know what? It makes a huge difference. I'm in the studio. No, uh, you are not. Uh, no, you are not. Oh boy, our guest is. I don't know where he is. I'll send another. Oh boy. Okay. Bear with me, guys. Bear with me. Wrong guy, wrong studio. Hold on. Invite. Gonna do this again. Okay. Bear with me. Oi. Leave the other. Sorry, guys. Use. Okay. Let's try this again. Okay. I just don't know what that's about, but he's in some other studio. It's definitely not this one. um, oh, anyway, yes. I mean, there are a lot of similarities. And how many times have you heard, you know, in the paranormal, I could smell sulfur. I could smell something very foul. People attribute that to demonic, energy or when they're coming in. Same with popping sounds or that static electricity. You can kind of see the static in the air and you hear it. It's like crunching, almost like crunching paper in the atmosphere. Same thing applies to ET contact or when they're coming in. Right? Yeah, it is not pleasant, not at all. I've smelled that more times than I care to say, obviously, but, yeah, it's not pleasant, and I know with having one thing nope, hold on, I think our guest made it. 1 second. You have to give StreamYard permission to use your camera, Kevin, because I don't see you on camera down there. So, there we are. Okay, are you ready, Kevin, to come on? Ready? Okay. Bam, here you are. How are you?
I'm doing well, Michelle. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I don't know where you went.
Yeah, y-
Is it the
y-
test
I've been
studio,
up since
maybe?
4 o'clock in the this morning. So
Oh, well, thank
yeah.
you for being here tonight.
Oh no, no, that's perfectly perfectly fine. So
Ah, well, we were just all conversing about different paranormal activity and similarities to extraterrestrial contact, such as smells and sounds and things like that. So we were starting to get a dialogue going while we were waiting for you. Just priming them all up for you, Kevin.
all right.
So, welcome to the outer realm. I am thrilled that you could make it tonight, and especially since you've been up so early. Um, so, where would you like to start? I know I like to start off at humble beginnings as to, what was your first experiences, and because one doesn't always just fall into writing a book on the paranormal. There's a lot involved, and it usually starts off with early experiences, also.
Yes. This book was about 18 years in the making
Wow.
from first word. It was actually a continuation. I've been writing. I was writing on this book for a long time before it finally got published. But my first experience was I was about 5 years old, and I was living in an old house in Evanston, Illinois,
Wow.
and it was just me and my mother. And this is like a big, rambling, creepy 1900s, straight out of some scary movie type house. And you can
Just what
imagine
every
that.
little kid wants.
Absolutely, yeah. But it even had the passages and the creepy basement
Oh, God.
and
I
all
love
that.
it.
But yeah, I was at home with my mother. It was just me and her. Excuse me. And we had those wooden floors, and we were downstairs, and I heard distinctly someone walking upstairs. And I turned to my mother. I said, "Who's that?" And she said, "Well, that's my little boy." And I was like, "What little boy? I'm the only little boy here." So it
Right.
turned out later she just said that so she didn't want to scare me because she thought somebody had broken in.
Oh,
But
wow.
it was distinct footsteps on a wooden floor walking across a hallway, and that was like the first experience, and I've been having experiences ever since.
Wow. That's a lot for a little kid. But you know what? Kudos to your mom for not making you feel really silly. Because I think sometimes it's where people go wrong when their kids say they have an imaginary friend or they have an experience to be told, well, you're silly. There's no such thing. Like kudos to her for not wanting to scare you, but not taking away from that your experience and what you were feeling.
Yeah, my mother was she was really special. She passed about 25 years ago,
Aw,
and
sorry. That's hard.
she had something, but we really never talked about it. I know she had a gift of something because she just always knew. You know, I know
Right.
everyone says moms know, but
Right.
she knew a little more. But we never
Right.
really delved into it before she passed. So I
Right.
regret
Right.
that, but I know that she's in a better place.
Oh, absolutely. It's the next level of our journey, you know? But I mean, it is really tough because going back in the day, so to speak, it's not something you really talked about a lot. Like
Right.
I was always told, no, you don't talk about that. People will just think something's wrong with you. Okay. Something's wrong with me 'cause I'm a little
Oh
weird to
yeah.
start with, but okay, let's go with that. Did you find it was the same thing? Like, did she sort of say to you, "Oh, don't go around telling people there's something in the house," or anything like
You
that?
know, she never did, but again, I even to this day still have those people that will give you the side eye and they'll
Right.
back away slowly. But then those are the same people that'll pull you aside later on and be like, "Oh, hey, by the way, this
Yeah.
happened to me." But since
Mhm.
they're with people like with friends or whatever, but yeah, I've always been. I mean, I've been called, you know, crazy like all my life because of this, and that's not really there. And you're
Mm.
right. I mean, this is something that was not really talked about, and if it was in hushed tones, and you
Right.
didn't go out in public and say, "Oh, my house is haunted," because then, you know, the
Mm.
men in the white coats would show up.
Oh, for sure. And then especially when you're moving into, certain small towns as well, it gets kind of funky. I find funny because it's been a mixed bag down in the southern states. It's a mixed bag because people, lean very strong to their faith. But in the same respect, you have those group of people who've had the Civil War, they've had so much going on. You got like Civil War soldiers out in every field. That's kind
Oh
of hard
yeah.
to say there's nothing going on here because it's the history puts them there. Do you find that because you're out in Virginia, do you find you have a mixed bag, or are people pretty receptive to you and your beliefs and your
You know,
stories?
it's interesting you say that because it kind of depends. I've been all over the state, and it
Right.
kind of depends on where you are. Uh,
Yeah.
and I grew up in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington D.C.
Right.
And that being so technologically sound as it is,
Right.
there was a lot of people that were just, you know, but you know, they, you know, Fairfax County, the county that I grew up in, was founded in like, you know, the 1700s.
Wow.
So you've
Yeah.
always had
That's
that
old.
oldness, but
Yeah.
also, like I said, on the battlefields, you know, I've gone on the battlefields and I've, you know, just walked around and just felt the energy and people, you know, people are kind of like looking at you like, what are you doing? Because I actually was working on a story. I'm still working on one, Battlefield Ghosts. So
Ooh,
I
have to
have
come
my
on and talk about that when you're done.
oh, absolutely. I'd love to. So I'm still
Yeah.
working on that. So yeah, I'd go around with my handheld and people would be like, what are you doing? So I tell them, and most of them were like, oh, hey, I saw this. And some of them were really receptive, and other ones were just like, oh, okay, bye.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like you said, it's definitely a mixed bag in Virginia at least and Maryland.
Right. Well, in Virginia, like you can go walk the battlefields. I know, like when I was in Gettysburg, they don't really
Yes.
like you doing that. Like they're real funky
Yep.
about you walking out to the battlefields. Do you have the ability to just go out and carte blanche when you want to go do these recordings?
Yes. I've gone to 4 or 5, including Antietam.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I had
Awesome.
just basically just you know, you get out of your car and you walk wherever. And
Wow. See,
that was
that's
really
why you want to
cool.
do it.
So
Right.
there's one in Loudoun County called Balls Bluff. battlefield. And I got the best experience there because there was something following me.
Oh,
And
okay.
I got some voices on recording, but that was the best battlefield so far. And I was a little disappointed in Antietam, beautiful place, but I didn't get anything. I was a
Wow.
little surprised by that.
Do you think maybe it's because they're just trying to figure out what you're doing? Because let's face it, I mean, on the battlefield, if they know they've passed on, it's one thing, but usually when you die tragically like that, sometimes you have absolutely no idea. You're just out there on the prowl at night just trying to stay alive, and you're just this intruder with something they've never seen before out there, and you're talking to yourself essentially,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I've watched and again I've watched you on a lot of the shows,
Oh, well,
and
thank
that's where
you.
I first became familiar with you, and I love your work. Your body of
Thank
work is really
thank
cool.
you.
But you
Thank
ever know?
you.
I always notice on these shows where they talk about that. A lot of people would go back two, three, four times to certain places, and then the spirits recognize them later.
Yes.
So I think
Yes.
maybe you're absolutely right. They're like, "Oh, geez, here's another," or they're probably just thinking, "Oh, geez, here's another guy,"
Yeah.
with the
Yeah, he's cool.
camcorder and
He's all
walking
right. We don't
around.
know what
Yeah,
he's doing, but he seems all right. He hasn't pulled a weapon out on us or anything. No,
yeah.
I truly do believe sometimes you need to build a rapport, because otherwise, especially when you're dealing, in a residence, like you're in their space. It's like they don't know who you are, and it's still their space. I learned that, even in the haunted forest. It was in Romania. It
Oh,
was a very humbling experience, but you know, we had, the ghost box out, and we were sitting there, and all of a sudden a growl comes through, and the spirits they were speaking in Romanian, and I asked for an English translation. It shows you there's no language barrier, and they gave it to us
right.
because I know my friend and teammate was Romanian, so she's like, no, that's correct, and they said, go now, run. And my thought is like, well, I don't know if I'm going to run, but I do know enough to be respectful. I'm out of my element. I'm in your element, whatever was there. And gracefully as I could, made an exit. But it was something on the, our heels pretty much the entire time. I followed
Oh,
all the way back to the hotel, making sure like, you're gone. So you have to have that degree of respect and realize there's always another day for an investigation, and being, respectful is important. And I think it gets you brownie points,
oh, absolutely.
right? So you've established a rapport with these soldiers, basically.
Yes,
Okay. And do you find now it's easier when you go in and do like voice recordings and investigating that they're more responsive to you now?
I do actually, and that's I never thought about that as I've done that. But yeah, you're right, absolutely. Because I've gone to Fredericksburg Battlefield in Spotsylvania, down in Central Virginia, and done some EVP work and interviewed some really cool people down there, including a forest ranger. And the park rangers never talk about that.
Oh.
They even told me that's one of the things that actually when I started this endeavor, I emailed the park, just to see what I needed to do, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't talk about those things."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh,
See?
really?" And they were like, "Yeah," because I asked one for an interview, and he was like, "No, we don't do that."
Hey.
Yeah, I
Be
just that was government maybe I have no idea,
Yeah,
but
do you think that's just because they don't want to start something? Well,
I
not
think yeah,
everybody's gonna be asking a yeah,
honestly,
maybe
I think
it's
so. Yeah, but yeah, this guy said it's policy not to talk about
I guess, yeah.
paranormal phenomena that could or may not go on in the battlefield. They're allegedly not supposed to talk about it, and I've never had one that ever would. And again, I've been to
Wow.
about 10 battlefields now, and yeah, they clam up and they will not say a word. At
Maybe you
least
need to
not to
find one
me.
who's retired or
Yeah,
quit or something. Maybe they would be maybe they're under, like, a non-disclosure agreement that they just can't talk about things like
could
that.
be right.
Um, Wayne House makes a good point. I remember the story. It goes, keep in mind when it comes to modern technology, older spirits will have no point of reference. For example, a camera that has the word Canon stamped on it may well instill fear or violent response from the spirit. This happened to him. They were trying to catch a photograph, and they put up this thing with this big lens. There's this Canon on it, and it's got this big lens coming at you. I would think, I mean, it makes sense to me. I would think that that could be, as a canon's a canon, but
Right.
it's little, but it still says canon. So I don't know. It's I think that's something we have to always bear in mind is just even when it comes down to explaining what a piece of equipment is. Whenever I would go someplace, I would hold something up. I would say, okay, this is what this is. It's a device that records your voice. There's nothing to be afraid of. It gives you the opportunity to communicate with me. And I would always explain what everything did, especially when you got things with lights and they're trying to
Oh,
figure it
yeah.
out. I've had spirits, on the recording. I could feel something touching the end of the recorder or
Hmm.
moving the camera around, like they're trying to figure out what it is.
Right.
Have you ever had those experiences?
Absolutely. One of my first EVPs was that way. They actually decided to hit the recorder itself, and this was back in the early '90s. Most of us will remember those big boom boxes with the dual cassettes and the detachable speakers.
Right.
That
Oh, right.
that's yeah, that's what I got my first EVP on was that in the house I grew up in. But yeah, it was before I got the voice, it was like beating on top of the machine, like something was drumming. And that was like,
Oh,
yeah, it was just really weird before the voice came through. So
oh.
yeah, that was interesting.
That would be interesting. I love anything that is out of the norm. I love to pique the curiosity of different spirit people because if the more intrigued they are, the more that liable that you may be able to get that little bit of extra activity. And
Oh
battlefield
yeah.
spirits are always very cautious, but you can see that I think sometimes they just look like they really want to interact.
Yes.
you know. Let's put up a couple comments as we go along. Guys, remember, we've got 7 chat rooms. Roku does not have a chat room. So we'll just try to make our way down as keep up as we go along because Kevin is setting the flow over here. Catherine says, I enjoy going to different older cemeteries to tell everyone I come with respect, love, and my camera. I promise to do no harm and respectfully set a boundary that no one can touch me nor follow me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Um, yeah, then I invite them to show themselves to the camera. Exactly. Exactly. So so you basically have had experiences there. So walk us through, from that point on. Do you do a lot of investigations? Because I know at the point that you had written the book, you hadn't quite gotten into the investigations yet.
Right.
And then we'll start, touch on that a little bit before we go to the reason that the book is even a thing.
Yeah, it was really interesting because when I wrote this book, after I wrote it, I didn't realize that I've been doing investigations all along.
Ah,
Somebody
okay.
actually pointed that out to me, and I never thought of it as such. But a lot of the experiences I've been having were
Right.
basically, investigations that I conducted and didn't even think about being an investigation at all, but they really were. And then after I thought about it, I was like, hey, wow, they're right. So I've really been doing that
Right.
since the beginning, basically. And I started doing EVP work as a high school student,
Wow.
and I've got a lot more misses than hits, but the hits that I do have are really good. So
Right.
the
Right. So,
spirits may be getting used to me, I think. I don't know, but yeah,
right.
I've been doing this is like I said, yeah, this has been almost a lifelong endeavor for me.
Wow. I think spirits can tell what kind of an individual you are. I mean, I think if you go in guns a blazing and I demand you to do this,
Yes.
if I was a spirit, I'd be like, yeah, okay. All right, let's talk about those demands. you know, but
Yeah,
but
I can't stand when people provoke. I
yes.
don't think that's necessary. And again, I'm on the opinion that you take your personality with you when you pass.
Yes.
So if you're a gentle natured person, you're going to be that same way in death as you were in life. So if you're going to have somebody screaming at you, you're going to be timid and be like, "No, I'm out of here." Or if you were a very aggressive person in life, somebody screaming at you, you're going to come at them.
Oh,
But I just
absolutely.
don't think there's any point in that, and I hate seeing that. But you
Right.
know,
Especially if you're dealing with children, a child is still a child. And trying to explain, But yeah, I've watched some TV shows where they say, "Okay, little kid, come here."
Yes.
I'd be like, "What is that?" you know. So, I think you do have to treat them with 100% respect, and you have to have a degree of integrity. And I think they
Yes.
can sense that off of us when we go into places. They can tell if you're a kind person or not. And I find that kind people just get some of the most amazing things. I think you can get recordings, like for me, just by talking to families that I've assisted or having conversations with my teammates at a location. You play back the recording, like if you have one going, I've learned to just have it going. And
Right.
next thing you know, you got people trying to get in on the conversation or they're
Yes.
mumbling in the background. And I'm
Yep.
like, was somebody else there? Oh, it's a nice little surprise,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely. That's yeah. I've gotten the same thing when I wasn't even expecting it. Just letting the tape run. That's some of the best stuff. Is just letting the tape run.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, walk us over to the book. I'm going to put your book up, Ghosts and Me. Tell us how and why this came to be, and whatever you want to share with us on that, the experiences, because there seems to be a lot involved with what you're saying. It's a lot of years of writing, so there's a lot of experiences in there.
Yeah. Well, basically, I wrote the book to actually help people
Okay.
because I knew how it was when I had experiences back in the 80s and in the 90s and even in
Mhm.
the early 2000s. It was still, you know, not on everybody's radar. And again, you talk about, oh, there's, this happened to me, and people be like, oh yeah, you're making things up, or you're crazy, or we need to go see the doctor, and all sorts of things.
Right.
So I wanted to show people that I consider myself fairly intelligent, very rational,
Right.
and I wanted to write. And again, I'm a writer. That it runs in the family, and I've always written things. So that was one thing that just came about. But I wanted to help people and say, hey, this guy here, i.e., me, has had these experiences, and I'm not going to, I don't need the funny pills yet, but yet I go
Right.
through these, and I consider myself quite normal.
Right.
So I just wanted to show people that, hey,
Yes.
this rational person has experienced things, and then that's usually what happens. So I figured, I put it down in paper, and I've had some fairly incredible experiences. So I wanted to let people know that, hey, these things do exist, these things do happen, and they happen to me.
Right. So what are some of your more memorable? Let's work our way through different types of experiences. What are the
Sure.
most memorable experiences for you?
I think when I was in college, I went to college in Pennsylvania, small
Oh,
town
that's
called
right there.
Waynesburg.
It says it
Yeah,
all right there.
yeah. The school I went to
Pennsylvania.
is Waynesburg University, and
Right.
I'll be honest, and I told my professors this, is that they had a gorgeous cemetery that
Right.
abutted one of the residence halls. When I visited, I thought that was so cool. I was like, wow, there's like graves literally like 10 feet from the window.
Wow.
So I was like, there's got to be ghosts around here.
Right.
And my professors were like, yeah, you didn't really just do that. And I was like, no, seriously, that was part of it, because it's a very old school. It was like 1849. So they've got a lot of
Right.
old buildings and everything.
Right.
But anyway, when I was there, I met one of my exes, that featured in the book, and she is a witch and
Right.
also a very powerful psychic.
Right.
And some of the experiences I had with her, were some were good and some were bad. I had an attachment
Oh,
because
bad stuff.
we opened a portal, and it wasn't closed, and this nasty thing came out, and it I was in, I think, uh the stages, I think, I want to say oppression.
Oppression. Yeah.
I was in the oppression
You could be
stage.
oppressed for years and
Yeah,
years.
and this
Yeah.
was just nasty, and this was not me. I knew something was wrong. And
Right.
then the people that were involved in this, um the the seance, I guess, is basically what we were doing, channeling session, really.
Mm.
We all experienced bad things, negative things happen to all of us.
Mm.
And that was, some of the things really bad. Like I said, my personality totally changed, and
Mm,
it was not me that was doing these things.
right.
And then finally, we were lucky enough to get that thing out of here, or at least close the portal, and things got better.
Mm.
But it took a while, and the residual part of that was just, it was nasty, and I never want that ever again because that was something I was not prepared for, and that
So,
was very memorable.
can I ask you, what do you think you did wrong with that? Or was it along the lines of being a victim of circumstance? Because I mean, portals, they're you can walk into a portal and not even know it.
Right.
So, I mean, when you're making that invitation, of course, to communicate, it is an invitation. Every time you hold out that voice recorder,
Mhm.
that ghost box, that camera, come here, do this, do
Yes.
this, come on, say hi. It is an invitation of sorts. So when you retrace your steps, what would you have done differently, do you think? And do you think it would have changed the outcome?
Yeah, one of the things I think didn't help was that the one of the girls that we were with, her boyfriend was a total non-believer. Like
Okay.
he was like, just, "Oh, this is crap. This doesn't happen. This is BS. I don't even know why I'm here." And
Right.
I think whatever, and we had all had experiences obviously prior to that. He never did. And
Mm,
I think part of that was what we were trying to show him, yeah, this stuff does happen, but no matter what, and he almost died after this. He got into a really bad motorcycle accident.
wow.
And I think honestly, the first when I heard about it, I said that was whatever came through. That's what that was his thing.
Right.
And that was one of the things. So one of the things differently, I think there should have been more positivity. And I
Mhm.
think we didn't really go into this prepared. And
Right.
my girlfriend at the time, um, I don't want to blame her, but she should have known better because
Right.
that
Because
wasn't the
she was
first
the only one
experience.
with experience per se.
Right, right.
Got
And
it.
and I think
Right.
honestly we just kind of went in there and didn't prepare ourselves properly. And whatever this thing was, we all saw it, it came out, and it wreaked havoc on all our lives for a
Mm,
good while.
mhm. So, I mean, you say we all saw it. Can you describe what you guys saw?
It was it had like the glowing yellow eyes, and
Mm,
it had the pointed ears, and like the big teeth. They weren't overly, like, I know I'm trying to, I don't know how to describe it, but
mm.
almost gargoyle-ish in the
Interesting.
face. It was kinda reminded me of a gargoyle, actually, now that I think about it.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, this thing just had evil. You could just it had evil all about it. It was just, you could just feel it emanating the evil, and it was just nasty. I mean,
Right. Right.
whatever
I
this thing was.
I often hear people say that they'll make a reference like to Gollum, like not
Yes,
big full
yes.
side, but that little hunched over,
Right, right, absolutely.
similar to that. Yeah,
Yes,
they seem to be pretty common little fellows, and they do like to, play for keeps, that's for sure.
yes.
Um, so how did you end up getting rid of this thing? And how many years passed, or weeks or months?
It was almost a year. It was
Wow,
almost a full
that's a
year.
long one. Yeah.
So basically what we did is that we ended up closing the circle. Like, we all got together and we just did a ritual to close the circle, and
Mhm,
that seemed to quell everything for a while. Everything kinda
mhm.
went back to normal, but it
Right.
took, I'd say, a good 2, maybe 3 years before everything was right, because again, we all had bad experiences following this.
Mhm.
Some worse than others. Like I said, the one guy almost died in a motorcycle accident,
Right.
but fortunately or unfortunately, which way you want to look at it, he became a believer, and
Right.
he believes now. And
Right. Right.
so, but it took a while, and honestly, I still think that some of the residual stuff didn't leave some of the people that were there, because they've had a lot of bad luck throughout their lives. I don't keep in touch with them, but I do know people that do.
Mhm.
And I always hear bad things that have happened to these people. I kind of wonder, maybe they need
Mm.
cleansed.
Well, for me, I mean, to go back and close a circle, you need to make sure that you're popping it back,
Right,
because if you don't pop it through and you're closing a circle, it can't get back through.
right, exactly.
So there has to be another way of removal. just in my experience of people that I've worked with over the years. But the great thing about that is mindset is a pretty powerful thing, because people don't realize that these things feed off of certain types of energy. So it's important to, like, if you're all love and light and I've got the windows open, I'm dancing, watching a comedy, there's nothing to really feed from. This is why they instill a lot of infighting and a lot of, they amplify bad energy or bad things, such as if you have anxiety, they'll amp it up. Depression, they'll amp it up.
Right.
Addictions, they'll amp it up. Divide and conquer. If you've got people within the home that cause a lot of infighting,
Yes.
relationships, it's just 'cause that's what feeds them.
Yes.
If that's what you're dealing with, of course. I mean, people have a way of doing that all on their own as well, right? So,
Oh, absolutely.
right. So I could see that being memorable. So, what's the most frightening thing?
I'd have to say my first EVP.
Oh, frightening. Okay.
Yes, and I'll
Okay.
I'll I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So the house that I grew up in, um, I describe it in the book as sad because
Oh,
it was really a sad house. My brothers and my mother suffered from substance abuse issues, so
oh,
there's a lot of negativity in that household growing up.
right.
So there was a lot of bad energy in that
Right.
house. So basically, it was just kind of there's always people there.
Mm.
I couldn't hardly ever remember anybody not being in that house at any time of day or night. But this
Wow.
particularly one night there was no one in the house, and I was like, "Wow, there's nobody here. I'm going to do an EVP session." So I
I'm going to
get
do
in.
what I shouldn't do.
Yeah, exactly. So I did that in my room.
All
I told you
right.
I had the big boom box and everything. So what
Right.
I did is I asked a question. I said, "If there's anything here, please show me." Hit the play and record button, walked over to my friend's house and let the tape run. Back then we had the Maxell tapes that ran for about
Right.
60 minutes.
Right.
So I did that. So I came back, rewound it and played it back. And I got a lot of, white noise pops and things like that. Nothing substantial. But like I said, right almost at the very end of that tape, there was drumming on, like somebody was beating on the machine. And that scared me because there was nobody in the house. And then at the very end, this voice came through, this guttural voice that said, "I have shown you, ha ha." And that scared the heck out of me. And
That just put a
I
shiver
literally,
up my spine
I
right there.
literally ran
Yeah.
out of the house. I mean, I was not expecting
Wow.
that. And the thing that really got me is it answered my question. That's the one thing that I
Right.
to this day, thinking back, and it just played through my head like it was yesterday. And I'm
Right.
getting shivers now too.
Me too. It makes it pretty personal, doesn't it? When
Yes,
when
and
you
again, it was just one of those things where it's like, I don't know what it was, but it's like back then, if you took the tape speed and slowed it all the way down,
Oh,
that's what that
yeah.
voice sounded like, but it
Yeah.
answered my question. That's the one thing that's always messed with my head because it
Right.
answered what I asked it,
Right.
and I didn't understand it back then. I was, still fairly new to this, and that
Right.
really got me. So I think that's still, to this day, probably the most scariest thing I've ever experienced.
It is, because it makes it really personal. And one thing, about the old Maxell tapes, the tapes, you can't fudge it. Now, if
Right,
you record on the other side, you can get a bleed through,
right,
right, of sound that can bleed through. But if I used to only record on one side only,
right.
and you can't fudge it. The only time you could fudge it is if you turn it to digital to the computer. You can't mess with it otherwise. It's like a
Exactly.
film camera. You can't mess. That negative has that imprint. You know, yeah, that's wiggy. Whenever I had somebody like say my name, I'd be like, it's just something about something that you can't see. Just
Yes.
So, did you have any problems after that? Because you obviously had to live in the house. You just still have that.
Actually, I didn't, and see that was the funny thing is because I've told people this, and again back then people thought I was nuts. My family members obviously included because they were like, "Oh,
Right.
there had to have been somebody that heard you and everything like that," and they try to analyze it. And I told them, and the thing that really also that was really crazy about this is it was the very end of the tape, like the very few last seconds of the tape. I didn't get anything in the beginning, like right at
Mm.
the 59-minute, 60-minute mark is
Right.
when that voice came through right at the end, as if it knew this is how I'm going to end this tape because you didn't hear anything, but all of a sudden I'm coming through. So people have analyzed this and thought, well, what is that? And believe me, I don't know. But yeah, I had a lot of experiences in the house, like footsteps. Like again,
Right.
I think I have an aversion to wooden floors because again, that house had wooden floors,
Right.
and it would sound like people were walking around my bedroom all the time. I mean, it was just
So it's
uh,
like a lot of phantom sounds, right? Which is,
yes,
um,
yes,
yeah, I mean, I've had sounds where it sound like chains dragging across a hardwood floor, yet you're on carpet in the room. I've
wow,
had, yeah, again, somebody sounding like they're on hardwood floors, yet the recording was captured in a basement on a concrete floor.
mm,
Like just those phantom sounds that just seem
right.
to come out of nowhere. Okay, I've started these up so make sure I don't miss them. What is the strangest paranormal? Thank you, Tamara. You want me to let you in the chat room because that was going to be my next one. So the strangest paranormal thing that ever happened to you.
Wow, that's a great question. Um, well, I don't know if this is paranormal, but I'm gonna throw this out anyway. So one of the things that I've noticed with me is that I'm also empathic, and I think
Right.
I do have some psychic ability. Not a lot, but I do have those moments.
Maybe more than you think.
Um, so when I was in college, I was in a friend of mine's car, and I glanced down at the clock radio, and it said 3:33. And I said, "Hey, that'd make a great lottery number." And he was like, "Yeah, we should probably play that." Just joking around, right? Well, guess what hit the next day?
Ah,
And he came back and he was like, "Did you see the number?" I said, "Yes, I did." I said, "What the hell?" And then I told him, I said, "That stuff happens to me quite a bit. I just don't say anything. Like triple
right.
numbers are always around, but I just so I don't know if that's paranormal or not, but that happens a lot where I'll see that and it'll pop into my head
Hmm.
and be like, wow, but the thing was that I said we should have played the lottery.
For
I don't know
sure.
where that came from, and I should have because it hit. I mean, it wasn't
Uh,
for a lot of
But
money, but it hit. So
but they might have not, it might have not worked if you were trying to
true,
profit off of it, right?
true.
The universe is a funny way of doing stuff like that. It's like, okay, it's one thing like to have premonitions, or it's one thing to be able to call some lotto numbers, and numerology is a lot of fun. And
Yes,
sometimes, you should get your angel numbers like the 333, the
right.
1111,
Yep.
like, yeah, see, I was just about to say that synchronicities.
Yes.
Sometimes if you train yourself to just look at things on the side of the road, I've had full names appear to me on a transport truck when I'm talking about someone, or like with respect to going to visit my mom. She
Right.
was, on her deathbed, and it had my maiden name flash across the back of the truck. Not a
Wow.
common thing. I've never seen that in my life on a truck
Wow.
or a billboard or anything. And it's like,
Yes.
oh, all right. Like it's just weird. And I find numbers do the same thing. It's just
Hmm.
funny how they work. And sometimes it's a matter if you combine them, it means something entirely different as well.
Right.
So I love numbers. I love synchronicities. It's just I love that sort of thing. Next, hello, Kevin. What, if any, advice would you give people who have had similar experiences as you and who are looking for answers?
The easy part is buy my book.
There you go, Kat. Buy the book.
No, seriously though. Well, actually, yeah, buy my book because you'll get some answers in there. But seriously, um, if you can find people you trust and within the paranormal community that could advise you, I would suggest to do that. And again, um, if you like one of the things I do is when I always give my email. I mean, I love people. I love talking to people. It doesn't even have to be paranormal. Just anything. Hey, how's it going? What's the weather like out your way? Whatever. But when it comes to advice and things like that, I love people asking me questions.
Mhm.
But basically, in studying, that's one thing that I think helped me is I try to get my hands on every paranormal book I could, and just
She
you know,
did. So, oh, You've
That's
been on
oh,
Cat show.
hey Kat, how you doing? Oh, I didn't realize that was I didn't I saw that. That's right. I have been on Cat Show. Hey
She goes,
Kat.
I did read it.
Yes, that's right. She did. That's
I
right. Oh
love
my
it.
gosh, that's awesome. I just read
No,
one of her posts on Instagram, by the way.
oh, there you go. I
But
love
yeah,
it.
and like I think I've become a student of the paranormal. I try to, like I said, I try to get my hands on everything. And in the last 10, 15 years, the ghost shows have popped up, as you well know, Michelle, because you've been on quite a few of them, and I love most all of them.
Thank you.
And I try to watch those to just garner some, and of course some of them are just horrible, and I'll just throw that out there because we've all seen the ones that
Oh, it is. It
yeah,
is. I
but every once in a while you'll come across
yeah.
a gem, and
Yes.
people that are the real deal.
Yeah.
And
Thank
just
you.
basically, if this is something that you really searching for answers, immerse yourself in it as much as you can, because I think that's the best way to do. And again, the one thing I've learned about this is that you can have 5 million questions and no answers. And I think it's just meant that way because we're not
Mm.
supposed to discover everything or anything really, because I find I run into more questions than answers, and that's just kind of how this is.
It leaves more questions. I think so too. I think that we're not meant to have all the answers. Whenever I would research something, if I could come up with more questions, it because let's face it, there's nothing definitive within the paranormal,
Correct.
right? It's really hard to pinpoint something concrete and say
Absolutely.
100% this is the thing. But I would get excited just to know that it had a question mark on it because that always meant I got to research it more, that it wasn't that I didn't
Right.
have to put it on the shelf because like, okay, I can't do anything with this. It's done now. It's just like, wait, I could still keep going in hopes of maybe finding something as close to definitive as possible.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And you're right. It's just always questions. But I remember Lorraine Warren saying to me once, she goes, "Dear," she goes, "we are all students and we will always be students." And it's true.
Yeah,
Never
absolutely.
but to me, like, is the best piece of advice I was ever given because
Mhm.
I am a student of the paranormal. I don't believe in experts. TV believes in experts, but
Yes.
I don't believe in
Yes.
experts, especially in a field of something that is still full of holes and
Exactly.
question marks.
Yep. And I tell people all the time, everything's theory based. There's nothing been proven with anything.
Exactly.
So basically, everything's a theory. Everything's theoretical.
Yes.
But again, if you have an open mind and you're open to these things, then yeah. I mean, I've had discussions with family members who are just staunch. There's nothing out there, whatever, and it's just like I give up. I can't do it because it's like
Mm,
they'll never come around to my way of thinking, and I'm not there. And that's another thing. I didn't write this book to have people convert. I just wanted to tell my story. But some
right.
people are like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to believe it." That's fine. That's your choice. But
Right.
I'm just saying this happened to me, and I put it on paper. But
Right.
yeah,
Right.
it to be a student of the paranormal, and there's so much to do,
Hmm.
and that's the cool thing I think is there's so much from, like you said, numerology to being a water witch to
Everything.
EVP captures, and just the gambit is just so vast, but there's so much out there that makes it really cool.
There's a lot of real mind-bending things with it as well, because you can get into, as my producer would say, dimensional bleed through. I used to razz him a lot every time I would say that. I'm like, "Okay, Joe, dimensional bleed through," and I had to keep saying it. And the more the more I said it, the more I went, "Well, crap, I think he's on to something." You know, I had to give it to him because there is a lot of that dimensional bleed through because there's just so many layers in one
Correct.
spot.
Yep.
It's like listening to a radio channel. You can only listen to one at a time. It's a sort of how I see dimensions as being one on top of another, and
Right.
we're going to bleed through for sure. Then we're getting into multiverses and it's
Yes.
just
Yes.
it's really vast. I got to a point where now I just like to call myself a researcher of high strangeness because there's just too much that it all intertwines. It
Right.
all intertwines, all of it.
Right.
To try to separate it all has become really difficult because The more we evolve and the more we learn and research, the more we see that, okay, wait a minute, there's this, I think I remember this happening in this situation. I think half of the people that I've helped in the last 2 decades, half of them, if not more, have had extraterrestrial experiences. So they've either been abductees, contactees, experiences of one sort,
Wow.
and I got called in to help them on a paranormal issue, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, we see grays often."
Wow.
Well, because the characteristics are the same: the smell of sulfur,
Right.
crackling sounds, popping sounds, humming, different things like that. They're
Right.
the same things happening. Sleep paralysis, both,
Yep.
both. Like it's we were just talking about that before you came on. It's just so many similarities that I had to take notice of it. I had to start researching the other
Right.
side of it because I had too many people telling me they're experiencing both.
Yeah, I read a article not too long ago on the Bridgewater Triangle,
Oh, yes.
and
Mhm.
I was just amazed at how many experiences they all had, and it never, because again, and this is another thing that throws me for a loop because I've had all these other experiences. I've never experienced the Bigfoot. I've never experienced any cryptozoology, anything. I
Right.
don't think I've ever had an alien experience, but I've had all these other experiences
Mm.
though. But it's just interesting to that
How
they
do you
all seem
know?
to tie together.
They do. How do you know you've never had one? There's been
Well,
more
that's
people that have
you know,
had experiences with aliens and they start thinking, like I had an attachment growing up, just to give you an example. And now that I think about it, and after talking to my mother before she passed, and I'd say, anybody else have any weird sightings and stuff? She goes, "Oh yeah, your grandfather would see things all the time. Bought a telescope. He's always had his nose up to the stars. As a child, we couldn't get you out from outside. You were always looking to the stars." My father, other side of the family. "Oh yeah, yeah, you see UFOs all the time around here." I'm just like,
wow.
so is it just me? Like I'm just learning this now that all this is happening. But if there's suppressed memories in there, now I'm starting to realize some of the things I experienced because I'm more versed now. I've researched,
Mhm.
and I'm like, all of this was happening to me while all of this was happening to me, and now I think they were combined.
So yeah, actually by that rationale, I don't know. Maybe I have. I just honestly,
Yeah,
if I do, I don't remember it. But like I said, they're not vivid memories. But yeah, you're
yeah.
right. Who
They
knows?
weren't for
Maybe I
me
have.
either till I started, and now I still have them to this day because ever since I opened myself back up to it,
Right.
I'm like, "Oh, okay, if you were a part of my life then, you can be a part of my life now." And I have all kinds of ET things happening to me now.
Oh wow.
And I'm
That's
kind of
great.
like, "All right, that's great." I think. I'm still on the fence about it some days, but for the most part, I'm quite comfortable with it. Um, Kat says, "I used to think paranormal was just ghosts. I quickly learned that that was not the case." Question for you: what would you associate the loud sound of breaking glass to?
Hmm.
That's a different one.
That's a very good question.
I can't
You
say
know,
that I've
one of the
talked to
things
anybody who's
that
experienced that.
one of the things that's really always to this day, and it always will, gets me is okay, we all know we have to have a brain and vocal cords to talk and to
Right?
communicate. But if you're a ghost or spirit, you don't have that. How do you do that? And that's always messing with my mind because I'm thinking rationally, okay, I know that I'm speaking to you because I have a brain and vocal cords, but how does the spirit communicate without that? And
Yeah.
that's always messed with me because scientifically, sure, anatomy, you say, well, you have to have that.
Mm.
It's a good, but again, I just say I don't know, but I've had voices talk to me that were not there, disembodied spirits.
Yes.
Um,
A projection.
right. I've had
Yeah.
I've captured EVPs of wood breaking. I've never had glass, but
I've not had
and I
glass
don't know
either
where
to
the
my
wood came
knowledge.
from, but it sounded like somebody was busting boards in a basement once where I had a tape recorder set up, and there was
Right.
obviously nobody there. That's a very
Right.
good question. I have no idea. I'm thinking maybe, um,
Is it a residual? I mean, residual
right, that's
sounds
what I was
make
just gonna
sense,
say, maybe,
right?
yeah, residual.
Because it's like an imprint in that time and space. And sometimes if an event is powerful enough, I mean, think about it. If you think about a death, And the spirit leaving the body would leave one heck of an imprint in that time and space. I could see events unfolding, especially if you're being chased, let's say. You always hear about the stories about the woman being chased by, someone coming down the hall at her with a weapon. She jumps out a window, or she's
Right.
thrown out a window. Like, you have that adrenaline and you have that fear. And this is one example, of course, but I would imagine that would leave one heck of an imprint as well. Because what
Oh, absolutely.
constitutes a residual? Because sometimes they're just like little nothing sounds. So we think.
Yeah, yeah, and um, I'm sure you've noticed, and I've noticed this, is that there are more mainstream stories on sightings and UFO sightings and spirit in the news that you
Hmm.
never saw before, and it's like almost mainstream, not quite, but when
Hmm.
I see that on a Yahoo feed, I'm like, wow, this is something you didn't see five years ago, 10 years ago. You never seen that. So
It's
that's
true.
kinda interesting, and it's not and this is what I say, I'm sure, I can't remember what it was, but it was an older commercial that said not just for breakfast anymore.
Right.
So my thing was always like, spirits and paranormal, not just for Halloween anymore.
Right.
'Cause you're seeing,
Darn
like,
it.
throughout the year, like and some
Right.
people I've actually talked to people who actually think that that only happens in October. I said, "What do you think these beings just stay hibernated for 11 months and come out in October?"
I
And they're
know.
like, "Well, don't they?" No,
I know.
so,
Oh,
I'm sure you
it's
come
true.
across that, but
But if you look at ancient cultures, the veil is thinnest in and around
yes,
Christmas time. It's not even Halloween. That's an
exactly.
us thing.
Yep,
I mean, you're getting into winter solstices, stuff like that. Like, I mean, there are different times of the year where the activity is considerably more active than Halloween. But I love Halloween. It's still,
yes,
one of
of
my most
course.
favorite times of the year. But it is interesting, I think, how we can, or we are starting to see things like you say. They're talking about UFOs, and paranormal. You're seeing more captures, and I think a lot of it has to do with cell phones, because everybody's got one for the
Right,
most part. They've all got at least a camera. There's at
right,
least a camera. It might not be the best quality camera, but it's a camera nonetheless. And you can capture things. And now with the internet, things get out there, and you have these incredible shows, showing all kinds of YouTube videos and photographs that are being put out there for the world to see. Do you think that has a big part of it? Because I know when you talk about alien disclosure, I mean, the last country in the world that wants to disclose is the United States. Everyone else pretty
right.
much has, and some countries have never really hidden it.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I've seen some footage that it's just almost impossible to deny. I
Mhm.
think and there's a pretty famous one, I'm sure you've seen the one, from Arizona back in I think it was the late '90s where it's clearly right there, and it was seen by, like,
Mhm.
policemen,
Right,
senator, I think the
right,
governor saw it, and
right,
it was like there's like, "What is that?" And, of course, they had to play it off as it was something it's clear as day that it's
right,
triangular and it moves really quickly, and I'm like,
right.
"Okay, if that's our technology, then why are"
Then
that was
say so. It's
amazing.
our technology.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, you know what? We live in a world, I think, where things are becoming more acceptable. I think because there's so much media out there,
Mhm.
whether whether you there's anything to it or there isn't anything to it. um the fact is there's enough interest to keep it going, and people come out and they want to tell their stories. One of the reasons I did the type of ghost shows that I did, you notice I didn't do investigative stuff,
Right.
but coming on and talking or bringing people to these shows, because I mean I filled quite a few seasons of just having people say to me, I want to tell my story, and I would fill the season for these some of these shows by saying, here's people, because people want to find a way to pay it back. And
Right.
I always tell people, I don't accept money, but pay it forward. I don't care if you just smile at somebody tomorrow, if you want to do something more, do something more. I've had people go on to actually start their own paranormal groups and help other people. It's their way of giving back. But sometimes they feel if I could tell my story and even one person hears it, then I feel like I've paid that back.
Right.
That somebody has learned something and somebody has maybe gotten the courage to tell their story, or maybe now they know how to find someone that can help them. I think if everything comes around full circle at
Yes.
some point.
Mhm.
um here's a great question. Hi, Ron. You're still up. Ron is in Scotland. He's a champion because it's like
Oh,
3:15
awesome.
a.m. over there right now. Are mirrors a portal? What are your thoughts on that? That's a really good question.
I believe they are. I have heard so many different stories about things coming through mirrors and
Mhm.
just either, good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
That yeah, I believe because it's a way for spirits to get to where they go. And my theory is this, and I'd say this. Do you remember the old video game Pac-Man?
Yes.
Okay, so you remember when
Yeah.
the little ghost could go out one side and come out the other? That's
Right.
kind of what I think they do with the portal. They're able to
Right.
go through one side and come out the other, and that's and my personal belief, and again, this is just my opinion, is I think that's how the Bigfoot go wherever they go through portals.
Mhm.
That's just again my opinion, but I think that's how.
It's quantum. A lot of people are
Right.
starting to believe
Right.
that.
And
Yeah.
I that's I've always thought that because and again the portals are everywhere. You're right. They're just all over the place. So I do believe
Yes.
yes. Almost any form I think of glass can be used as a portal. I think it's just that's another way for them to communicate and another way for them to move around. So I think yes, definitely.
Anything with a reflective surface,
Yes,
basically.
absolutely. Yes,
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
always thought that.
I've heard that, I've researched it, that sometimes putting two mirrors together, or you have a mirror against a window
Right.
or a reflective surface, that it can and has caused, things to open up.
Yes.
And we see it when just in talking to people over the years, and I'll say, where, does the most active part of the house seem to be? And a lot of times people say, well, this room or this
Mhm.
area, and it fits the bill of the reflective surfaces.
Absolutely.
So that makes sense to me as well. During an investigation, how do you determine the difference between a spirit and a demon? Sometimes they pretend to be the other. Yep.
Well, I think, and this is one thing that really it irks me is that I think the D word gets thrown around way too much.
Way too much. TV loves it.
Yes, it's sexy. Demons
Oh,
better than ghost,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just irritating because it's like everything, and it's also like ratings grabbing. Some of these places that
Oh,
do that, and
get
it's
me
just
started.
and again, and that's the things I try not to do that because I know that just really gets my ire up because I think there's a
Yeah,
lot of negativity out there, not necessarily demonic, but just negative spirits out there
100%.
that have
Mhm,
nothing to do with anything demonic. And
mhm,
and again, it's just how do you tell? To be quite honest, I don't know. I'll be quite on. I have no idea. I've ran into negative spirits that were not
mhm.
demonic. They were just
Right,
negative and nasty, and I've
right,
ran into a lot of good positive spirits that could have been angelic.
right, right.
But
And
that just grates on my nerves at how some people just use the D word to
it's
describe
really difficult.
everything.
It's really difficult. I retired, from film, because of the fact that you end up getting stereotyped. I was sitting here giving answers, and out of the 5 that I give, there's only 1 that they always use. I probably run around saying psychokinesis more than I do anything else. And it's out there. And I think people have been conditioned to think as well that what they're experiencing, because it's so malevolent in some cases, that and again, if you're people of faith and really strong faith, it's really tough because this is what
Right,
you're taught to think it is as well. But I agree with you. There are a lot of mean people. If you're a mean person in life, you're going to be, a mean SOP in death as well if
absolutely.
you're still here. Um, and I believe projection of energy, which is like layman's term, poltergeist activity, but people are powerful beings. You can
Right.
project energy very easily. It will cause footsteps. It will cause cupboard doors to open and close,
Yep.
and lights to go on and off, and electronics to go on and off. We are really powerful beings, but
Yes.
somehow, and I don't know if you find this as well, Kevin, but it's easier for people to think that there's something big and crazy running around the house than it is for them to think that they may have projected a lot of this activity themselves because of their powerful energy.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah, definitely. It's like, you know, that's got to be a demon rather than grandma.
wish that as well. I don't know. My grandma would have
I
been
mean,
something fit
well, yeah,
to be
yeah,
dealt with. Let me
yeah.
tell
Well,
you.
yeah, my one set of grandparents are definitely, they were not very nice in life, and I'm sure over
Right.
there they're not very nice either. But
Right. Oh,
yeah,
my
and
grandma
again,
was
you're
just
right.
feisty. So, like, but there are ways. I mean, you have entities that can mimic
Yes,
spirits. I've seen spirit
absolutely.
children get mimicked by more malevolent things. Is that giveaway is always, if you're hearing something that's the smell for me is a giveaway for sure. As to whether you're dealing with a human spirit or non-human entity of sorts. Does it mean it's demonic? No, not really. I mean, if you factor in the fact that even a gray can let off, sulfuric, people report before being
Right,
taken that they can smell sulfur
right,
and humming and all this other crazy sounds. Like, I don't even know anymore. I don't even know anymore what it could be because there's just too many similarities. And I know it's not very helpful, but right. Sorry, guys. It's all we got. Kevin and I are just tapping out on this one, and it's all stuff that I want to say. Yes, I have, spent a lot of years. I could tell you the textbook part of it all, but as far as personal beliefs, it gets tougher because we evolve from that knowledge just
right.
by learning. So, you know, um, so we move along. um, so you've had all these experiences, and your attachment you think is in check. What I mean, are you still experiencing things to this
I
day?
I am, but honestly, I think I'm, I don't want to say evolving, but transcending perhaps.
Okay.
And by that I mean I get less footsteps, doors closing, things like that, and more so, like I said, the triple numbers.
Okay.
I think about somebody I haven't thought about in years. They call me, they text me something, things like that. The synchronicity part that's ramped up.
Right.
And my empathic abilities have kicked in a lot more, and that's actually helped me like in everyday, everyday life. Because I'm basically an introvert, and it's hard for me at times to go out in public because of all the energy I pick up off of people, and it's
Right.
hard to put that wall up, and people drain me. I mean, honestly, people drain me when I go out in
Mm-hmm.
public, and I work in a field where I work with developmentally disabled people,
Mm-hmm.
and they have their own challenges, and I work with mostly women,
Right.
and their energy is a lot different than male,
It
and
is.
when I leave work, I'm drained a lot of the times because their energy is so powerful that I have to try to like find a way to like to shift it around because it's just, and again, I've gotten better as I've gotten older, but again, I consider myself an introvert, and
Right.
again, a lot of people, I can't stand a lot of people. It's just too much, and it's always been that way, and I never knew why, but now
Right.
I pretty much know.
Well, if you're empathic, it makes it really hard because you're picking up on a lot of different emotions as well. So if
Yeah,
somebody's angry, you're going to pick up on that anger. If somebody's, it's the same. If somebody's happy, you'll pick up on that as well. Fearful. I think sometimes people drain energy, not even intentionally. I just think it's life can be exhausting.
oh, absolutely.
I mean, some people are working two jobs. You come home, you
Yep.
get do homework with the kids, make dinner, get them out to soccer. Like
Oh
life
yeah.
is really busy. I mean, sometimes you could be having a paranormal experience and you don't even realize it because you're so busy. The example I like to use is, let's say you leave a glass on the table and go to work and you come home, if that glass moved, would you know that glass moved, or would you just say, yeah, I left it on the table. I forgot to put it away. I forgot to
Right.
wash it. Or I've been doing this a long time, and I would look at that, and unless it was clear on the other side of the room, I would not know if it moved on that table at all.
Right.
So, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, before we get to Ron's question, I'll get back to Adrian. No question or topic is ever worn out. We try to keep up with you. Then what is a demon? Are they all ancient, eternal beings? I'm pretty sure I've met two in my life. What, in your opinion, is a demonic energy?
Yeah, I have to agree with what she's. I'm assuming that's female, Adrian.
Adrian, yes.
And again, my assumption, pardon me if you're not, I apologize because I
No,
know
she is.
Adrian can be both
Adrian,
male
yes.
and female.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I've been to places where the energy is ancient. It's been there for long before people even got there, and I've felt that. Um, but as far as because I go by the, like you were saying, the textbook, the definition, and I'm not Catholic, so again, I'm drawing upon. I'm sure you remember back in the 70s and the 80s, almost any ghost show or ghost book, I always think, oh, you had to be Catholic because everything was, you had to go to the Catholic priest to get rid of things. And I
Right,
always thought about, wait a minute, there's so many other religions. Why is it always Catholicism?
right.
And so I'm by that rationale, I
That's a
just go
whole other
by.
show, though,
Oh,
Kevin.
absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
I don't want to put my toe in that water because
Oh,
right,
yeah, we could be
we
here
could
for
go for a
hours on
week
that one.
talking. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Right.
But again, it's just I go by the biblical
Mhm.
version of it, and so I apologize, but I just got my shirt tugged.
Oh,
And well, they no, the spirits have a tendency when I do shows like this, they love to join me, and
right,
something just pulled on my jacket.
right,
That's why I'm looking behind me because I should be used to this by now. They like to touch me now. They didn't used to do
right,
that before, but I'm getting touched all the time, like in the
right,
car, things like
right.
that. So I apologize because
That's
that was
interesting.
actually a pretty
That's
big
okay.
tug.
We've had people spot things and hear
Yeah,
recordings while people are
yeah,
talking.
yeah.
So,
So
you know.
um, I hope you're enjoying it. But yeah,
Yeah,
I just have to go by the biblical sense of the word
right.
demon because again, I just think that term unfortunately is overused. I do believe they exist, yes, but I
Mhm.
do believe that there is just
S-
too
Do you,
much that's just
do you think they're another
malevolent that's
race?
not. See,
Maybe.
I'm not. I don't
Yeah.
know. And there that calls into like because that's the whole thing of
Mhm.
I've met people that think that they came from outer space.
Well, I mean,
So I
yeah.
honestly I don't know.
Well, there's so many different extraterrestrial races out there. So let's hypothetically say, I mean, we're conditioned to believe that, demons are fallen angels that were never at any point a part of
Right.
this time and place per se. But let's go into the ufology side of things. What if it's a big reptilian?
Yeah.
If you're a ufologist, you might think a demon's a reptilian. If
Right.
you're a person of faith, you'll say a demon's a demon.
Right.
Um, you know, um, I don't know. I just think that I've had people who get into um, both sides of it and say, no, I've seen reptilians and I've seen demons. I know phenomenal remote viewers who can tell the difference between them because they've seen them. I think to unequivocally say that this doesn't exist or this doesn't exist while you are in this plane of existence, unless you have the ability to travel about, you know, to be able to reach through the ether and see visions of everything, I think it's really difficult to say for sure what they are, and it's
Right.
difficult to say for sure they don't exist, right? So,
Right.
but I agree with you on the religious point of everything. I believe that there's a lot of stigma with a lot of that, and we're conditioned through television and media just to
Oh yeah.
focus on one thing. um, Also, a good question here. What do you think of the stone tape theory? Great question. Ron, you're on a roll
That's
tonight.
great question, and I believe in that.
Me
And the
too.
reason I do is because I studied communications in college, so I remember bulk erasers.
Yeah.
So if we truly do have an electromagnetic field running around the earth, then
Mhm.
obviously yes, strong emotions will be captured and can play back. And I think a lot of my some of my experiences were the stone tape theory rather than
Mhm.
current things going on. So I've actually seen that, and like I said, with the battlefield ghosts, for instance,
Mhm.
those are strong impressions because of the way they died, but they're not current. They're from 1862.
Mhm.
So yeah, I firmly believe that anytime there's some sort of motion, and again, um, knowing the ions on
Mhm.
magnetic tape, that's just
Yes.
kind of that just makes a lot of sense to me.
Right. Right. I agree. They have had a lot of experiments go on over the years. But I know we had somebody on the show who is a stonemason, and he would do a lot of repairs, also in Scotland, and he would do repairs in old cathedrals and things like that
Oh
because
wow.
it's like he does it the old-fashioned way,
Mhm.
so it would be more true to what was already there. And he goes, sometimes you could actually hear like resonance
Oh,
from, singing and things that have gone on. And when they've done experiments and put recording devices in places like this, they have captured sounds,
that's
choir music,
oh wow.
people talking and conversing, and right down to, I think they found an old, I don't know if it was an old Roman or Mesopotamian bowl, a clay bowl, and they were able to play it,
Oh
and they could
wow.
hear different, whether it was thoughts or voices
Oh,
that were
that's
happening at the
cool.
time of its creation. It is mind blowing, the things that they do out there. But stone, technically, is it a living thing? It's part of this planet.
Mhm.
Does it have, of course, it has a memory. I don't know. There's a lot of theories involving that.
Right,
It's really phenomenal. I love it.
right, and I know that they say, like, quartz is a
Oh,
good
yeah. Crystal
stone
skulls.
and water, and I think,
Yes.
yeah, so it just yeah, that definitely begs the question, but yeah, I mean, why not? A
Right.
limestone is supposed to be a really good conductor of paranormal activity,
If
so
you investigate a house that's built over quartz, limestone, or running water, which many of them are, you will find, chances are, heightened activity of some sort.
yep, that's been my experience.
Yes, yes. I just have to do a very quick station and sponsor ID. For those of you who are just tuning in, you are listening to the Outer Realm Radio with, this evening, myself, Michelle DeRoche. Amelia's not with us this evening, under the weather, and Kevin Killen. And we are talking about his book, Ghosts in Me. We are broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network, UFO, Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM out of the Gulf Coast and New Orleans. We're fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee, who have been a part of our journey since day one. So thank you very much, Folgers. Also, Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, aka Justin Snicker, for the contribution of his time, his music, and his voice, for the intro and sometimes the outro, an award winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci fi, and dark wave electronic music. Check him out on all of your favorite music platforms. Also, Steve McGinnis, the man responsible for all of the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram, does great commission pieces, also specializes in the horror genre. So, guys, if you're just tuning in, we are talking everything paranormal. And yes, Tamara, our chat room co host, like, share, subscribe, please, and comment. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And I do try to respond to everyone. So we're back. Kevin, you're still having some activity. Keep looking around you. I'm just kind of like,
Yeah,
what's going on over there?
I'm my living room is next to my kitchen, and I keep hearing pings behind me by the stove, and this is the kitchen area seems to be one of the more active places in my house.
And why do you think that is? Got a good cook in there, or
I have
you're a good cook?
honestly, I have no idea. My father passed last May,
Oh,
and
sorry.
I
My
think
mom was April.
thank you. He stuck around for I think about a month. before he
Right.
fully moved on, and he
Right.
was always messing around in this kitchen. I had the feeling it was him, but he's gone now. He passed over. I don't know. It's just like a regular thing. I don't know. I think it's because of the water, quite honestly. So the sink.
Oh,
But
you
yeah, I
know.
don't know. But I just hear a lot of activity more so there. I hear footsteps in the living room, but
Right.
it's
Right.
more active in the kitchen, and I really don't know why.
Do you think that maybe you something followed you back from, the battlefields or other places you've investigated?
I believe they do. What I try to do is again, I also do the whole, don't follow me home. You stay here. Thank you for your time. I'm respectful.
Right.
Um, but I think that just like people, they don't always listen.
No, they don't.
And I actually have a cemetery not far from my house that I pass every day going to and
Oh,
from
that'll do
work.
it.
And I've
Yeah,
actually done
right.
some good EVP work over there. So I don't know. Maybe they decided to jump in and come join me. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, honestly, what at this point in time with me, it doesn't surprise me if they just said, "Oh," because I consider myself kind of like a beacon. I'm like that flashing motel sign.
Right.
They see that, oh, hey, he can hear and see us, so we're gonna go mess with him because that's kind of how it's always been. So I wouldn't
Right.
doubt it. And also, I think I give off a decent aura, and I think that might
Yeah.
people they might pick up on that and know that I'm a pretty good person, so they want
They
to.
probably feel safe with you too, if that's the case, you know?
But yeah, I don't think any of my family. I've had family members pass in the last, you know, 5 to 10 years. I don't think any of them are here, but
Well, I
I
don't
think it's
think they'd
just
be like, they might wanna touch you. You always have that one aunt who's gotta be touching you all the time and just,
true.
right? Everybody had one of those, but, but yeah, that's interesting. I could see you being followed around, which brings me to this question, which would probably be best suited for you. Have either of you run into a haunted tree or actual spirits that like to hang out in trees?
Oh, great question. Yes, I actually going back to the question about the demonic. I ran into in Pennsylvania. There was a lot of woods that were there was something ancient in
Mhm.
the this particular forest. And my girlfriend at the time, she said it was a state park, and she was like, if you go
Oh,
down to the bathrooms, you can hear people talking, and there's nobody down there. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So we went
right,
down there, and yeah, there was people talking. I said, who the hell? I said, what is this? She said, I told you. But there's like a whole thing, a grove of trees that were there was no wind, but they were talking, and it was just the
right,
coolest thing because I just you could hear like the rustling of the leaves, and you kind of heard words, but it was only in this one section of forest. It wasn't around us. It was just this one. So I believe that there was spirits in that tree. And again, I do believe in things like fairies and things like that. So
elementals.
elementals,
Elementals like
yes.
to be in the trees a lot.
Yes, so there was something in there, but yeah, that was a neat experience. That really was cool. I really enjoyed that one. Other
Oh,
than the
I
voices in the bathroom, but the
yeah,
wind in
that'd
the
be a bit winky,
that
but
was
yeah.
that was a little creepy because I know you've all been in one of those bathrooms, a state park bathroom, and it was just empty and creepy anyway.
So you thought.
Yeah, and it was just like
So,
there's people talking there, and of course it was that whispering where you couldn't understand it, but you could hear it. Couldn't make out any
yes.
words, but it was like people were talking next to you, and you were like, "There's nobody here." So
Yeah, but it's going on and they're probably watching you.
yeah, but yeah, that was really cool. Like I said, and I think there's certain trees out there that, like you said, have elementals in them and
They
spirits and
do,
everything. And
yeah.
the ones I kind of live on a hill out here next to a
Right.
pond, and there's a lot of nature out here. And
That's
they
great
they
though.
let me, yeah, they let me know. Like I'll walk out of the door and I'll see deer come out, and I know those were meant for me. So it's
Yes.
just I just have a feeling I just know that
Do
I just
you
you
do you
know
think trees have spirits? Could
yes
you
I do
could you be
I do
dealing
believe
because they know they communicate with one
yes
another through
I
their
believe they
root
do.
system. Do you
Yep.
think maybe you're hearing tree spirits?
Oh, I absolutely. Yeah. I definitely think, yeah. I mean, they're breathe well, yeah, I guess they are breathing.
Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
love to think that. That's the best place to ground is in the forest.
Yes, absolutely.
Tamara asks if you had do you have your house cleared? Do you have your house cleared?
The one I'm currently in, no, but I've had others
Right.
that have been cleared. And as a matter of fact, my current girlfriend just moved to another house and hers needs cleaned out bad. But
Right.
I told her, I said it's more than I can do for her. I mean, I could do the basic, but it's going
Right.
to take a lot more because there was a lot of residual negative garbage that went on in that house because unfortunately the use of the Ouija board was part of it
Right.
by inexperienced people and just a
Right.
lot of stuff that shouldn't have been done. And of
Right.
course, I told them, I said, I told him, I said, you brought a lot of garbage in this house and I can't get rid of it because I'm not strong enough.
Right.
So
Right.
that's
Well, you can message me on that, and I could probably be of assistance with that. Our team is amazing. It's a lot.
good.
It's all done through remote viewing and
Oh, that's
team
good.
members both sides of the veil, and I would say our success rate's about 95%.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I
So
definitely, yeah.
yeah,
Just because
just putting it out there.
she needs it. Her parents are moving into that house and they're older, so I
It might be a good idea. Might be a
right,
good idea. Well, on the topic of Ouija boards, what are your thoughts on them?
don't like them.
Why?
Uh, I've seen people just have bad things happen because they don't
Mhm.
know how to. And again, I think the intent is the whole issue.
I agree with you. Thank you.
And that's the thing. And again, I don't know how many times, and I know, and I think actually, I think one of the shows that I saw you on was Ouija board spirits or something, and I was like,
Oh, is that what
and
they named it?
I think it was one
I
of
have
those.
no
Yeah, it
control
was.
over what they call
Yeah,
the shows.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. And
Right.
I was just like, oh, I got to hear these stories because I've come across people that on Halloween don't know anything. Hey, let's grab the Ouija board and go out there, and it's like, oh, geez, people, you don't know what you're doing. Now you
Yeah.
just opened up God knows what,
Right.
and some of these people thought, think I'm crazy, and it's just like I don't want to sound like, get that dog off my lawn, but it's like
Yeah.
honestly, it's like Ouija board safety. But again,
Right.
I think it's the intent, honestly,
Hmm.
what you want to do, and again, I don't know if there's such a Ouija board etiquette, but you have to know what you're doing because again, I think it can get misused, and I think there are spirits just hanging out that are no good that are just like, oh hey, they opened up a
Hmm.
portal, let's go through there. We'll
Hmm.
go wreak havoc now. So I think
I
it's an
agree.
effective communication tool if used properly. But
Right.
I really honestly, and again, I've gotten this question before where they'll be like, well, what's the difference between a Ouija board and a tape recorder? And I said, well, you're right. I
None.
mean,
There is
you're
no
trying to
difference.
communicate.
Right.
Um, I don't know. I've seen just too many things
Hmm.
not done correctly with Ouija boards and some like fakery, blatant fakery go on that is,
I think that goes back to, I think you nailed it with intention. I don't think it matters what you use to invite communication. I think it's very accessible because you can get it at most flea markets or any toy store. But again, it's mindset. If you want to communicate with someone, you don't actually technically need the board. You can just I think that a few
true.
papers and a glass and
Absolutely.
don't do this at kid home or at home kids, just but you can get a glass. You can do all kinds of stuff. I've seen phenomenal things happen, but I know that the mind is also a very powerful tool. And I know that if let's just say something does come in or spirit does come in or whatever the case may be, whether you're projecting it yourself, if you're thinking something, it's not hard to
Right.
project that out there for anything. Will give you any answer you want. But I think you could do the same thing with a pendulum. You can do the same thing with a voice
Yes.
recorder, a ghost box, EMF detectors, and
Yes.
uh, you know, I am a real big believer in in even in research because believe me, I've got like tens of thousands of dollars of arsenal of equipment over 20 years. You can only imagine. I
Oh,
used to do a lot of public speaking where I would show people this stuff and I would say, does it work? No. Did it cost a lot? Yes. So it's just trying to, educate people. So I do own a lot of
yes.
stuff and a lot of it I've never used because I really look at common sense and my own intuition. And some of it They're fun to play with, but I'm always curious when people say, "Oh, it's a scientific thing." Well, it's not a scientific thing.
Yes.
Science is done in a laboratory, in my opinion. But I get it. Tools of the trade. Something that helps to maybe get you a few more answers. But again, because nothing is definitive, you have to sort of consider the fact that it doesn't matter what you use. Ouija boards are just one more thing, and I think if you're a really good medium, you wouldn't need it. But some people need visuals. They need to see a visual. They need to
Yes.
physically see something. And if you're a really good medium, I think you could do it without any problem.
Oh, absolutely. I
But
agree
I've
with
seen
that.
really good mediums get duped as well. So,
Yeah, that's true.
right. So, um, I've seen a few. We're talking about spirits in the trees, a group of trees in silhouette form as the sun was starting to set. Treetop, highest branches and grouping of trees. I felt like they were watchers in the
Oh,
area
okay.
intuitively. So maybe elementals again. I'm thinking,
Yes.
it sounds like. Um, okay. So as we're slowly getting into the last probably 20 minutes of the show, what do you want to talk about that we haven't touched on? What would you
Okay.
like to share with us?
So if I can do a shameless plug,
Of course.
I'm putting the finishing touches on my next book. I had a near death experience
Okay.
before my current book came out. I actually had a massive heart attack, and
Oh,
luckily I had the Widowmaker, and the
oof.
doctor was like, "I don't even know how you even made it. It was that bad."
Wow.
So when I was in the operating room where they were fixing me up, I just had this really calm, peaceful feeling come over me. Like
Hmm.
I've never felt it before, and something went in my head saying, "If it's my time to go, I'm okay."
Hmm.
And then I talked to a friend of mine who was into this, and she said, "I think you had an NDE," and I was like, "You think?"
Hmm.
And she said, "Yeah, just the way you described it to me, and the way that you said you're ready to go, but you didn't. You're still here. You had a near death experience," and that always and I always wondered. I've read so many things about this, and I've talked to people who've had them, and now I've had one. What does it mean, and what's the purpose? So again, this is another research thing. So the reason I bring that up is because I put the finishing touches on it, but I always love stories. So if
Right.
anybody in your audience would like to send me any NDE story they may have, or any story about the paranormal they wish to share, they can send it to my email. I would greatly appreciate it.
Okay, let me
Um,
just put your email down. Hold on, let me go copy and paste it. I'm going to be brilliant. One second. Okay, copy the address. Can I put that here, chat, or
yes.
do you want me to just put it in the description of the show?
Oh, you can put it in the chat. That's fine.
Okay, guys, here
Yeah.
it comes.
Yeah, and like I said, it could be like I said, drop a line. Hey, what's up? Trees are nice today, or we can go into talking about what equipment you like to use on investigations, or if you have an NDE, please let me know. Like I said, I'm putting the finishing touches on it, but I could always use more because there's just so many out there, and I've done a lot of research on this and gathered a lot of stories, and
Mhm.
again, it's just again more questions than answers still.
Right,
So
right. But I think that's what you're doing is a great it's a great idea to connect with other people because this is where you find similarities,
yes,
and that's pretty much half the battle. It's just a validation for you.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I had an ND. I may have had possibly two. One when I was really ill, and I finally just because I kept having a voice say to me, "Are you done yet?"
Oh
And I
wow.
and I was just like, I just thought about my children. I'm just no, I'll never be done.
Oh
And
wow.
that was it. And you know what? When I was asked three times over the course of 3 days, once a day, and
Wow.
by the third day, when I had said no, all of a sudden, all the pain I had disappeared within about an hour. And I got up after being bedridden for about a week, and I got up and just went and took a walk. It was the weirdest thing.
Oh wow.
So not quite NDE like the first time, where you see this the
Right.
light come
Yeah.
out. It was totally different, which is why I always think it's a questionable thing. Like, did I? What was that?
Yeah,
Okay, who
and
was I
again,
talking to?
that's yeah, and again, that's I've gotten some really amazing stories,
Yeah,
and I again, it's just like, wow, what did they go through? Because, like I said, that was mine,
yeah.
and that was bad enough, I guess. But it was just, again, I can't even describe the feeling. It was just so peaceful and calm. I've
Mhm.
never felt that ever in my life. It was just
Right.
like, yeah. So
Yeah.
if anybody has any, and I've read some really wild ones
Mhm.
out there, but they're really enjoyable because they do happen. But yeah, and again,
Um,
also,
yeah.
yeah, something just fell off my refrigerator. So doesn't do that often, but they must have
Somebody's
heard
showing
me.
off.
Absolutely. So now I lost my train of thought. Oh, also, so I'm doing an anthology as well. So any ghost stories people have, feel free to send them to me because I'm still gathering those. I'm
Right.
still working on the battlefield story. I actually live in Maryland now,
Oh,
Southern
nice.
Maryland, near the
Right.
beach. So I actually have to go back up to Virginia. But there's tons of battlefields I haven't been to. And actually, what I was trying to do is I wanted to finish the one story, get it out there, and then I was going to go farther south and do Battlefield Part Two and go to like Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina,
Wow. Yeah.
Alabama, Georgia.
Right.
Um, but again, like COVID happened and life
Right.
kind of
Right.
happens. But I've still
Yes.
got I've got like 6 manuscripts going at the same time, and I know my publisher is going to be like, we just need one.
Yeah, I can just like settle on something. Well, if you
She's
ever
like, send
decide
me
to get
something.
into ancient sites, out your neck of the woods up in Massachusetts is America's Stonehenge,
Yes.
and Dennis Stone has been on our show a few times, and I would happily connect you. People go up there and do paranormal investigations all the time.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Oh, it's an
Yeah,
incredible place.
like my number one bucket list item is Salem.
Well, you're up there. You hit two birds with one stone, so to speak.
Yeah, and I'd like to go to the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yeah, boy.
I would
There's
love
a
to
lot
hit
of
that.
triangles in the world. Like I did a whole show just on triangles. There's many. Michigan, Lake Michigan, Lake Ontario.
Yes, yes,
Like
I've heard that.
there's so many,
Yeah,
and you look at all the similarities of everything that goes
the
on with
have you
extraterrestrial cryptid.
had anybody on the burial mounds?
Yes.
Okay, I figured you probably, yeah, because I used to live near Moundsville, West Virginia, which was named after
Mm-hmm.
some of the Indians,
Yes.
Native Americans burial. But
Mm-hmm.
I just discovered the one in North Carolina. I didn't hear
Mm-hmm.
about that one, and that thing looks amazing, and it's so old, and people don't know where it came from. And there's some,
Right.
like, I think a stone down there that's got ancient writing on it, and it's just like, wow, this is really cool.
There
So
are some really great things, but there's a lot out your way too, over on the East Coast. There's a lot of different things out there.
yeah,
You know,
it's
you're looking.
really
I
old.
could fill you in on a whole bunch of places that you can go to and go have some fun. Yeah, just connect, going all the way down to Newport and places like that, just all the way down the coast. You can get yourself into some really good Viking and Templar history, and
Oh
you
yes.
get there's tons of stuff, tons of stuff. So, the best way to get a hold of you then, of course, is your email, which I
Mhm.
have put in here. I will make sure it is on the YouTube, all three of the YouTube show descriptions.
Okay,
So this way, if they go in there, they'll find it as well. And of
let
course, the next
me.
time you get a book out, you have to come back and talk to us about
Oh,
that.
absolutely. Let me give you. Sorry, I'm trying to.
That's okay. I'm just
I'm
going to bring
trying.
you.
I was going to give you my Instagram account, and
You go ahead. Yeah, I'll put that on the show
I'm trying to
description as
find
well.
it. Here it is.
And there is a link to your book on Amazon in the show description also. So people could go on
Thank you.
Amazon and purchase the book. And anything you send me, I'll make sure it's in there when I do
Awesome.
the final edit.
So my Instagram account is Irish Kev 7147.
I would recommend you email that to me so I could copy and paste the
Okay.
actual link to it.
Okay. And
But
also
for
email
those
you.
listening, they can. Yeah.
Right, and also email you my publishing company's website that has my author
Yes.
page.
Yes, that sounds great. I get it. I'll put it in there. So, I'm really glad that you connected with me and that you came on the show tonight. I know
Thank
Amelia
you.
will be disappointed. Tis a time of year. When you're down, you're down. And it's
Oh, yeah.
February, March is always usually the two worst months. But I'm really glad that you came and you hung out with us all and shared your stories and bounce ideas around with us. I think it's great.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this, and
Oh,
like I said, when I shamelessly I was watching one of those shows, and I saw you on there. I remembered you, and I was like,
aw.
oh, well. So I just looked. I typed your name in because I was like, let me see if she has a website or something. And lo and behold, I got there, and I was like, oh, she's got a show. And
Da-da-da-da.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, and she accepts guests. I said, shh. So I did, and I think I emailed you day after Christmas or Christmas, but I was glad I
Yes.
did because I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. So
Oh,
thank you for
I'm
having me.
oh, it's a pleasure, and I'm really glad that you enjoy the shows and that you follow. Thank you. It's very nice to know, and it's nice because now here you are, and hanging out with me and all these amazing people in chat and all these millions of audio listeners out there as well, and
Absolutely. So you're in New
yeah.
Orleans, correct?
The show streams out of New Orleans.
Okay, the
I'm
show
actually in
streams.
Canada.
That's
Yes.
what I thought. Okay, because I was like,
Yes.
that's right. Because I was like, wait a minute. I was like, New Orleans. That's kind of cool because that's another bucket list. Oh, the Myrtles Plantation.
Oh, there's a lot of places in New Orleans.
Yes,
Oh my
yes.
goodness.
I want to go
Oh
see
boy.
Marie Laveau's grave and give her some cognac.
Yes. Yes.
But
I'd
yeah,
have to hook you up with my producer Joe for that because he knows where all the hot spots are.
yeah. I
So,
I I have a sister and she went there with my father, and I've never been there, and I was
right.
so mad because they got to go to New Orleans without me.
That's like, how dare they? What is that about? Wow. Yeah, my daughter's been to New Orleans and I've been doing this show out of New Orleans for like, you know, 4 years at least now. And I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't get to go. But that's okay. I'll get there. I travel, of the different parts of the world.
Well, there's a
So
lot of stuff in your neck of the woods as well.
there's
I've
lots of
found
stuff out
I've
here.
found I've found some good stories out of Canada, and I've got friends in Michigan, so they let me know about the UP, and then I've got some friends in Canada, and if I'm not mistaken, the Wendigo
Oh yes.
comes
That's a big
comes
one.
out your way, right?
Northern US and most of Canada. Yeah, it's a
Yeah, I love
pretty
that story. I would love that. That's one of that and the Rougarou, I think
the
are my 2.
loup-garou is a werewolf.
Yes, yes,
It's a
those are
werewolf in French. And a loup-garou, I think is very New Orleansy, Louisiana type.
yes.
In French itself, it's changed from an R to an L. It's le loup. A loup
Loup-garou,
is a wolf,
right,
loup-garou.
okay.
So yes,
Are you French
and
Canadian?
I am.
Awesome.
You're
That is
right.
so cool.
Yeah.
I kinda figured with your last name, but I didn't wanna.
I married it and it became my professional name and I just had to keep it after that. So now I got it. But yeah, definitely not my name, like my maiden it's name, but it's married name. But no longer married, but like I said, got the name. But yeah, it's there's a lot of really great stories that come
Yes,
out of Canada and
yes,
blends in with the US, and a lot of it comes from Europe because
right.
people brought their traditions and their belief systems with them. And every now and then, according to some, somebody tagged along on one of those big ships. And you know, but I still believe in the portal theory. So more than
Yeah,
anything,
yeah,
dimensional stuff, But
I
I'm starting to
agree.
see more of that.
I agree, and it's funny because I was never a great mathematician in school, but
Right.
somehow I'm doing quantum physics now.
Oh boy, they'll give you a lot more answers as well, for sure. But I
Thank
love
you,
it.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you. And you open door policy. You decide you want to come back on, you want to share some research before you get a book out, you let
Oh,
me know.
I would Michelle, I would love to come on anytime.
Thank you.
That is
Well,
that is one of my I just love talking about this stuff, and I love connecting with people. So
right.
anytime you want me back, I would love to be on your show again, book or no
Thank
book.
you. I'm booking into May. But yeah, let's put together something you want to talk about, and give me some point forms, as it can't be the same thing, and we can definitely make it happen.
Awesome.
All right. So thank you, and have yourself, the remainder of a terrific week and weekend.
Thank you.
And
You
I'll
do the
be in touch
same.
with links and such.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Take care of
All
yourself.
right. Good night.
Good night, Kevin. Well, we've come to the end of another awesome show. Kevin is just wonderful. Really, really cool spending some time with him tonight. Great stories, great to bounce, ideas around with. So, big thank you to Kevin Killen for joining us this evening and talking to us about his book Ghosts and Me and his paranormal experience, The Battlefield Ghosts. Looking forward to what he's going to come up with on his next book about that. So, big thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring our show tonight and every night that we air. Huge thank you to Justin Snicker, Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, Steve McGinnis. We appreciate you all so very much. Thank you. Thank you. Tomorrow night, we are bringing back Dan and Teresa Duke. They're going to be discussing the Wild West and secret societies of how are they connected, I guess, is what we're going to find out. So you'll have to join us back in the chat room. Check us out on UFO Paranormal, United Public Radio Network, 105.3, 107.7, wherever the case may be. Hit us up on our Facebook pages, hit us up on our YouTube pages, heck, hit us up on Roku. We are everywhere. And we continue to bring you fantastic content and great guests. So to everyone in the chat room, thank you for joining us tonight. Ron, it's probably 4 a.m. by now. We have to get to bed, but we appreciate you tuning in. So good night, everyone. We shall see you tomorrow night.